Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Other Side of Addiction. I am your host, Al Richards, and today we have our special guest, Leticia Morrill. Leticia, thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's an honor to be here.
Awesome, thank you. And today's topic is going to be the power of choice. We also have the beautiful Janessa with us today, so
Hello.
Always a pleasure to have you here with us.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
So, Leticia, oh my gosh. You and I have known each other for, 5-6 years, I guess, through networking, through the chambers and different other networking groups.
Yeah.
And I never ever knew that you had a bout with addiction until I was in your store one day. And by the way, Leticia and her husband, Kevin, are the owners of Computer Hospital, who are one of our supporters and one of our sponsors. So thank you so much,
Absolutely.
you guys, for doing that.
Absolutely.
And and then one day I was in your store and you and I were chatting and you're like, well, yeah, I had my little bout with addiction. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
It's so amazing because there has been so many people that you and I have networked with that when I started sharing my story about my wife's addiction, even at First Fridays where there's 130 people, people were coming up to me and going, hey, can I talk to you in private? And would go off to the side and they're like, oh, I don't know if you knew, but I had an addiction. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I've known you for 8 years and I've never known that. So it goes to show addiction, I think, hits almost every family, almost kind of like cancer and heart disease. And I mean, it's just crazy. Now, you're a native. You're a Utah native, right?
Yep. Born and raised.
Where did you grow up at?
In West Valley.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So you're a Granger. Did you go to Granger High School?
So I would have went to Granite High School, but because I left home when I was 15, had some stuff going on from probably 11 to 15 at home, and at 15 I made the choice to leave. And then I got pregnant at 16. Mm-hmm. So then I didn't go to a public school, but I did go to they used to call alternative school. Now it's homeschool. Now it's cool.
Yeah. I had to go to alternative too, but that's because I was sloughing too much.
So I would have went to Granite High though.
Okay.
Yep.
Wow. And I was looking over some of the stuff that you sent to me, and you said you were pregnant at a young age, and my wife fell in that same category as well. And then I think it was age of 18, is that when the addiction stuff started? And was the addiction because of what had happened as, growing up? Or?
No, I mean, I suppose if I had ever gone to a therapist or something, they would say yes. Mm-hmm. But from my perspective, to be quite honest, I was in a abuse, I wasn't in a healthy relationship, really, is the bottom line. And he was the one who introduced meth to me. And we weren't really users of anything prior. We'd smoked weed before and drank alcohol, but nothing hard. And he introduced it to me, and there was this weird thing in me. I was really young, and I had been with him for years, and so I feel like I did it more out of wanting to be accepted rather than trying to heal a trauma or cover a pain or something to that effect.
Yeah.
When I look back now, I feel like it was more of wanting the love and the acceptance that perhaps resulted from things that happened in my past. But the choice, I know, was because I wanted to feel a part of them, him and his friends, and just accepted and loved. It's really interesting that's
regardless
kind
of how you were treated.
Yeah.
And this almost sounds like my wife's story. Because she was with a guy for quite a while, never really drank and things like that, but he introduced alcohol to her and would get her to where she would drink, to where she would get drunk enough to where he could get her to look at the nude magazines and do things that he wanted her to do. And she did those things because of that same reason, because she was picked on, she was bullied, and she's like, well, at least he accepts me. You know, so she just wanted to be accepted as well.
Needed.
Yeah, even though this guy was very mean to her, would beat on her, you know, put her down, but she still felt that acceptance that as long as I do this, he's gonna like me.
Yep. And I felt a lot the same. So I was with him from when I was 15, and he's the father of my son. And but so when I left home, I went back and forth from my parents and him, and again, very unhealthy and super hard on my parents. I have no idea how they survived that. And I've seen you have guests on here where the mom and the daughter, and I just think that's so powerful. But I now look back and I think, man, how did they survive that? Thank God they did. But I can't imagine. But what happened was at some point they had to say, we can't. If you're going to choose to go that direction and be with him, then they never said disown you, but you're making that choice then. Don't keep coming back unless you're ready. Well, once that happened, he started feeding my mind with a lot of things like they don't love you. If they loved you, they wouldn't say that. And so then now he's feeding me all this stuff that made me think that almost like I didn't have another choice. Because again, we're talking about me being 16, 17, when all of this brainwashing, if you will, is occurring. And so by the time that happened, I felt like he was all I had. I didn't know, I can't leave because how will I take care of myself? You know, there's all the fear of what happens if I make that other choice. Sometimes knowing what the monster you're dealing with is easier than
confronting
another one that you're not aware of what's going to happen. And that kept me there for a few years, for sure.
Well, I can't imagine too of having that fear of being a single mom. I've got a baby to raise, and really, I mean, you're not at that time at 18 being a child, but in a way we still are at the age of 18, because we think we know everything, but as we get older, we realize we didn't know shit.
For real.
To be honest with you. So I can imagine the fear that you had going, I'd rather stay with this.
And the fear because my parents were always so like, you shouldn't be with him. Like they could see.
Yeah.
And I would always defend him and us, and the fear of them being right. Oh my God, that was a heavy one, right? I didn't want to have to admit that they were right, or that anyone that was on the outside was right. And so that also, it's just played into my ego and kept me there. In all of it, physical abuse, the mental, emotional, and then the drug abuse, like all of it. It was like an anchor.
Gosh, I'm just picturing in my mind all the neurons that were going off inside your brain. I mean, seriously, they were hitting probably from every single flipping direction, and you just didn't know which one to grasp onto, because how could you?
Yeah, it's a survival, I would say, for sure.
Yeah, survival
just in
instinct.
Survival, like how do I and take care of this baby? Because I knew that, like, I had a good work ethic. When I left home, even though I was 15 when I left, I was working. So I even tried to go back to school. So like I had said, I left my home in the summer between, I would have gone to high school. So I had just turned 15. When I tried to go to school in September, I registered, and they said, you can't register because you don't live at home. Now, I don't know to this day even how they exactly knew that, but they did. So they said, you can't register for school. So I'm like, what do you mean? I'm a unicorn over here. I'm trying to get in school, and you're saying no, and you've got all these kids that are sloughing and not wanting to be in school, and that's their story.
Yeah.
So what do I got to do to get in school? And they said, well, you'd have to go to the board, the board of the school board, Granite School
Holy
Board,
cow.
to basically plead your case as to why you think you should be able to go to school. So I did. 15 years old, by myself, I went to the board, and I said, I don't live at home, but I still want to go to school. I just don't want to be at home. And bottom line was what they said that I had to do was have he was my boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
He would have to have guardianship of me in order to go to school. And I think it was because of like the truancy laws and that sort of thing. So that if anything were to occur, he would then be held responsible rather than my parents, because I didn't live with them. So he was 5 years older than me. So he was 20. So figure that out. Like, technically, he probably should have been in jail, right? I mean, and instead he's my guardian.
That is so weird. I've never heard anything
my
like
parents
that.
had to give over guardianship, which, again, I don't know how they did that in a few ways, right? Yeah. Because they knew, I know in their hearts that's not what they wanted to do. But when your kid's doing what they want to do, how do you stop them?
Exactly.
Yeah. So they gave over the guardianship, and then I was able to go to school. I only went for a few months. It just wasn't going to work out. And then it was about 6 months later that I got pregnant. But I worked all the way through that. And I was the one in our relationship that was the stable worker, which is so ironic because, again, he was 5 years older than me and should have been the one responsible.
He's more of the adult than you are.
Yeah. And so I just knew from then, like, this is my responsibility. And even with Eric, who's my son, I always knew that I was just to take care of him and that he was, like, working. And I didn't try to be on welfare long term. Like, I got support from the state, and it was more of what I think it's supposed to be for, is a hand up, right, to help get you on your feet, which is how I feel like I was able to utilize the support that I got. But I always knew, like, this isn't my path. I just didn't know how to get off of it.
Yeah.
And that was even before the addiction.
With all you were going through, though, like, you got to look back and be like, have a lot of compassion on that 15-year-old and be like, holy crap, look at all you were going through.
No kidding, right?
It feels like a different life.
Yeah.
I mean, especially now, so long ago.
When we have guests on our show, like yourself, that share where they were at such a young age, I mean, I get goosebumps because for me, it's hard to gather. And I know we all come from different places in life. My parents came from a small coal mining town, and we were basically raised as this is just what you do in life, and I had a good childhood. I mean, basically, I knew my parents loved me, even though it was a tough household to be in and a lot of love wasn't shown. But at 15, for me, all I cared about was can't wait till I'm 16 so I can go hunt mule deer and taking my shotgun down in the Jordan Narrows and shooting pheasants and, my interest in girls. And that's all that was on my mind. I can't imagine being 15 and go, okay, crap, I've got to become the adult here, and everything's on my plate.
Like, you grew up, or you grew up so fast.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I was like, at 15, I wasn't even like.
I mean, it's not natural. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's
not natural.
Yeah, and this is also something that amazes me with a lot of our guests that come on the show. If somebody walks into your store and they meet you, and you and Kevin are just awesome people. I mean, you guys really are. You're phenomenal people. You care about your customers. You care about people. You have a lot of love. For someone who don't know your past, they would never ever realize that that's the past that you had. Yeah. And I think that's why it's important for all of us not to be so judgmental all the time.
Absolutely.
Because you could still be in that type of relationship, and you're one that something hit you one day and you're just like, you know what? And like what we said at the beginning of the show, this is, the show's about the power of choice. There was a time, I'm sure, that came into your life where you're like, okay, man, something's got to change here.
for sure.
You know?
Yeah. It reminds me of a story. Yesterday, I was at the store with all 3 of my boys, and my 2 younger boys were just going nuts. They'd had it. They were running, chasing each other, screaming around. They're like, so me and my older son are trying to corral them and settle them down, And I didn't see this happen, but I guess another kid came up to my oldest and was like, stop torturing your brothers. Like, you're being so rude. Like, listen to your mom. And I didn't hear that, but in the car, my son was like, yeah, this kid came up and said that to me. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He goes, yeah, he didn't see the whole picture, Mom. And I was like,
wow,
so that was really insightful.
Yeah.
He's like,
No
because
kidding.
It wasn't me. I was trying to help, but he didn't see that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
that was really deep.
Yeah.
That is
For
really
a little
deep.
9-year-old,
No kidding.
But I thought, I was like, and I was telling him, I'm like, how many times does that happen? Whether we do it to others or others do it to us.
Yeah.
They don't see the whole picture,
Yep.
Yeah, we're already judging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we really know what the heck is going on. And I'm guilty of it myself. I've done it throughout pretty much the majority of my life. I used to watch my dad make fun of people all the time, and I just thought, oh, that's what you're supposed to do. Somebody that looks different or acts different, you're supposed to make fun of them. And then it took me quite a long time in my life before I realized, why am I making fun of these people? They didn't choose to be who they are. Maybe they grew up in a family where they didn't have the luxury that I had.
Sure.
I don't know. Maybe they do come from a family where their mom or their dad are sexually abusing them, or an uncle or an aunt, or they're being beaten. I mean, how do you know?
You don't.
But we're so quick at pointing our finger at them and making fun of them. And I come to realize there was probably something going on in my dad's life that made him feel better by doing that.
Or maybe it was happening to him,
Or it could have been happening to
or
him,
both.
yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's hard to say. So your boyfriend then,
Yeah.
he kind of started getting you into the meth, and again, it was all just to fit in,
Yeah.
to be accepted. That had to take your life to a whole different level, and being a mom at the same time. Yeah, where did that next step lead you to?
So at the time, we had actually been separated. And so I'm not exactly sure why, but we were maybe trying to make it work, I suppose would be a good way to say it. And then that's when that happened, when we were just hanging out and one of his friends pulled it out and was like, let's try it. I had never tried it. He had, but I didn't know that. So we used, and that was that, like, whatever. But he was still using, so both of us were using, but I had at that point had my shit together, basically. Like, I had a good job, I had a car, I had an apartment, all the things. And he didn't. He was still just doing his thing.
He was living off of you.
And it was, I guess it was fine. I mean, I don't know.
That's
I don't know
crazy.
why. I was like, okay, if it was, maybe it was just that love and acceptance. I mean, really, that's all I can wrap my head around it being.
Yeah.
So I start using, and not long, I would say probably within 6 months to a year max, but I would say probably 6 months. My job was on the line. I wasn't able to, we were staying up all night. I would go to work having no sleep. I'd be 3 days. I did customer service, so I'd answer the phones for a call center. And there were times I was lucky to even stay awake through my shift, that kind of thing. Or I'd be in the bathroom using or whatever, just
to try
and
to
no
stay
one knew.
awake.
No one knew. Or at least I don't think, right? Probably people knew, because let's be real. And then probably about a year into it, I'd lost it all. My car got repossessed. I got kicked out of my apartment for not paying. I lost my job because I couldn't show up anymore. And now I'm like, now what? At that point, rather than choosing out, I chose in further, because I was like, I'm not going to go down on my own. We're going down together.
Wow.
So I was like, let's go. I mean, I don't even know. It seems so opposite of how a logical mind would work. But that's it. So then I said, okay. We were homeless. We lived in the car. We stayed with people that would let us stay with them. Thank God for... So at the time I had Eric. I mean, he's 2-3 years old, and this is the life I'm in. And at the time, at the very beginning, I knew, like, my motherly knowing knew that wasn't the place to be, or with him or us. But I was more about, nope, we're going down together. I'm not bailing you out. I'm not supporting us to get us out of this. I'm just going for the ride. And I'm going with the ship. Let's go. But it was probably, and like I said, you know, we were staying at people's homes, and I'm sure that they allowed us to stay because of Eric. I mean, I think that honestly, they would have turned he and I away, because we're grown adults and you made your mess, you sleep in it, right? Yeah. But with Eric, how do you turn away? How do you say you can't, you're going to sleep out on the street, you know? Yeah. So thankfully, the people that we were able to stay with were compassionate in that regard, because we never actually had to live on the streets, although we slept in the car and those sort of things. But we lived that way for probably a good 3 years, you know,
Holy
just
So
bouncing around, no stability. I had no contact with my parents at all. Back then, there was no social media, no nothing. So they had no idea if I was alive, what was going on at all, because we had just basically lost contact altogether. So then I felt even more isolated at some point, again, because he's over here with this, and then I've got this addiction. They're right. I was wrong. It's just all the mess in my head. And then eventually, I started work. Like, I had always been working at some level, even if it was just temp jobs. I mean, you got to support your addiction at some level.
Yeah,
and
somehow.
he was always more of the illegal ways, you know, stealing and that sort of thing. That was never my thing. I always wanted to be a responsible user.
A responsible user.
Like, I'm going to pay for my drugs. I'm paying for my own way. So I always worked and did what I had to do. Well, it was hard because I guess now looking back, I can see where at that point the divergence starting to happen. Because I was still working, even though we were using, but now I became, honestly, it's like a responsible user in the sense that I would work full time and I would casually use. Like, I can see that shift was starting to happen. But there was one day that I came home and we were so broke. You know, I mean, we were just I was making enough money to get to the next day of work. And this particular day, we had no money. I didn't know how I was going to get to work the next day. And I was taking the bus, and it took forever to get to where I was going, you know. I mean, it's not fast. And the bus fare was 75 cents. And I remember we had already cleaned out the cars of the people we were living with that said, yeah, if you can find any change in our car, you're welcome to it.
Sure.
Or the couch cushions or all that, trying to figure it out. Nothing. Well, he wasn't home at the time. He was out, I have no idea, looking for the next high, trying to score, whatever the case is. And I remember when he came home and I was so upset that I didn't know how to come up with 75 cents. Like, that was it. And when he came home, I remember the moment when I said, I don't want to be where you are when I'm your age. And at the time, I think he was about 23 or 4 or 5, right in that age. I can't quite remember. But I knew, I'm like, you know, I'm 18, 19, right in there. And I'm like, no, I don't want this life that we're living right now. He shouldn't be okay with. Like, he's 25 years old. He should want more for his life. But I said, if I don't get out now, that's going to be my life.
Yeah.
It's
You
not
could see
changing.
it. Yeah.
We've been doing this for years. It hasn't been a healthy relationship in different ways, you know? So then that was the moment. That was it. I said, I'm done. I'm done using. If you're done, we can be done together. Or if you're not, then this is it.
Wow.
And he said, well, then I guess this is it. So I left. I called my mom and I said, I hadn't talked to her for years. And I said, Mom, I'm ready to come home. Can I come home? And she said, absolutely. So I had a transfer still because I had come home on the bus. And so that evening, like, I still had my transfer. So I grabbed my son from the folks that were watching him for us. I packed up what little we had and I jumped on the bus with my transfer and I went home. And that was it.
Wow.
Now, it wasn't easy. And there was still a lot of him trying to get me back and that sort of stuff. And that was difficult.
So you probably didn't think you'd actually leave.
No, because I had left and come back and a lot of times before my parents finally said we can't do it anymore. I'm sure the emotional toll it was taking on them was more than they could bear.
Yeah, it eats it up.
I can't even imagine. And then not knowing if I'm okay and all of that stuff, was very, very difficult for them. But then on that side, going back home, they didn't make it easy at all. So I had no car, I had no money, nothing, right? I don't quite remember how I got to work the next day. I can only imagine that they gave me a little bit of money, but they said, we're not giving you rides anywhere. We'll give you a roof over your head and we'll feed you. That's it. You don't get a key to the house. When you're done with work, you come. My parents owned a restaurant at the time, so they said, you come to the restaurant and you'll sit here until we're going home, and then when we go home you can come home. But they didn't say the words, we're not going to make it easy, but they weren't. They were making sure
they weren't enabling you, right? Because that's what
absolutely.
we do. We make that mistake so many times, because I know I did that with my wife. And of course, addicts are really good manipulators. They know how to pull at your coat strings, but
they probably didn't know like who you were involved with and if you were bringing someone to the house. Or
I think
probably
that was
like,
yep.
God, we got to have boundaries here.
Yes, absolutely. And at the time, I thought they were just mean, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, super grateful that I at least had them to help me at that time. So that was kind of interesting. But after that, it was really easy to be stuck in the blaming him and even blaming the things that had occurred before him about why my life was the way it was. And it wasn't until I was able to work through that's when the choice occurred. And that, yes, I had that one moment, that aha moment when I said, I don't want to be where you are in 5 years or when I'm your age. But even still being out of it, it was really easy to be the victim in all of that.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And it was his fault. And it was, the things that occurred prior to him, whatever, right? All the reasons, excuses, all the things of why. And I did a lot of personal development. So here's the crazy thing. So we divorced when I was 21, and at that point, I knew something was missing in my life, but I didn't know what. Right now, I'm trying to fill the void. I don't have him. I don't have his friends. I don't have the drugs. I have my parents, but it's not the same, right? They're just filling a little. What do I do? And there was a moment where I thought that what I needed was God in my life. And I didn't really grow up with any religion or anything. So that's what I thought. So I found religion, changed my life at some level, but I don't know that really, it served its purpose during that time, but it really didn't it wasn't quite enough.
Yeah, still not filling the void.
Not
there was something
not
there.
quite. And so then guess what happened? 10 years later, he shows back up and we remarry.
10 years later.
10 years later.
Wow.
So we had no contact during that 10 years at all. 0. So no child support, no phone calls to Eric, nothing. And for whatever reason, I know now, but at the time, for whatever reason, I just thought that was it. He was what I wanted. You know, it was familiar. I don't know.
Yeah.
So I always knew that the reason we divorced was because of the addiction. Because I was ready to be done and he wasn't.
Right.
So that made me think, well, the love is still there. And so if the drugs are gone and he's not using and I'm not using and it's been 10 years and I've done a shit ton of growing up, surely he has too. He lived in Maine, so he wasn't here even at all during those 10 years. Surely we could make it work now because we did love each other. It's just the drugs got in the way. So, I mean, 30 days, we boom, we get in contact, he moves out here and we remarry.
Oh my gosh.
Holy cow. Quick.
Yeah, it was quick. And the reason for that in my mind was because of the religion, right? I didn't want to show Eric, who at the time, he was probably 13, 14, right in there. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to be a good role model, right? And so instead of doing what would have been right for me, which would have been a slow, long a longer period of dating or courting or whatever before we got married, my ex had convinced me there's no reason to get another apartment and then we both have 2 places and then I'm going to furnish it and then I'm going to have to deal with all that. So why don't we already know, so let's just get remarried. So again, in order to deal with the religious judgment, I didn't want that, right? Of, oh, well, you're living out of wedlock or whatever that is.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so here we go. We get remarried. And my parents,
I can imagine.
I bet
They're probably going, no, not this
Lord.
roller coaster again.
I mean, seriously, and at this time, I think I was probably 32, 35, somewhere in that age range. So now I'm well adult enough to not be doing this again. But here we go.
My goodness.
And he had brought a son with him into the relationship that he had from another relationship. So he brought him with. And within literally the night we got married, I felt like there was something off. And so it was just bad from the beginning. I start checking his phone, which there shouldn't be any trust issues. Right. But clearly there were. And I found stuff on the phone with him talking to other girls and just that day. But now what? I can't turn around and say everybody's right again. I was in the same damn boat. Everybody was right and he is making a fool out of me basically. Now what do I do? So I stuck it out and we probably, I guess after about 6 months we decided to separate, and we separated for a few months and then we came back together and tried to work together or tried to be together again for probably another 6 months. And then he had hurt his knee. And so he was getting surgery done, and he had some weird behavior leading up to this, but nothing that was really glaring for me. But when we went to to get his surgery on his knee, we're in the the room with the waiting for the doctor or whatever, and the nurse or whoever it is, they come in and they ask all the questions, like, when's the last time you ate? When's the last time you did all these things? And they ask him, are you taking any medication? And he says, yes. And they ask him, what are you taking? And he says, Adderall. And at the time, I didn't know what Adderall was. And they said, well, what are you taking that for? And he said, because I have ADHD. And I'm thinking,
you do?
No, you don't. Like, what is happening right now? So I don't say anything, but I am annoyed because something's not right. I know something's not right. So he goes to surgery, and in the waiting room, I'm on my laptop checking out what Adderall is and why he might be taking it. And that's when I saw that it's kind of an alternative, or can be an alternative for meth addicts to use, because if you don't have the ADHD and you take it, then it can affect you the same way as meth can. But it's prescription, so people
then it's okay.
justify it. But of course, he
Don't
wasn't
ask
prescribed
questions.
it.
Yeah,
He was
ask
getting
questions.
it from a friend, right? So now everything's starting to piece together, because like I said, he had some weird behavior, but I just chopped it up to him just being a jerk. I mean, I didn't think it was drug related. But now I am like, wow, I don't even know who he is right now. Mm-hmm. And when he got out of surgery, he's all hopped up on the drugs, right? And so I'm thinking, this is the time to ask him.
Oh, yeah, because he's out of it, huh?
Maybe he'll be truthful with me and tell me
Good
it didn't
thinking.
work. It didn't work. It was not successful. But later we talked about it and he justified it, whatever, had all these reasons, all the things. But there was a moment that we got into an argument and he threw something across the room towards me. I don't know that it was meant to hit me, but it hit the wall behind me. And I said, that's it.
Yeah.
I'm out. And he was only less than a week out of surgery.
Wow.
And he's like, you're really going to leave me here like this? I'm like, yeah, like I'm the only one here to help you. And this is how you're going to treat me. I'm not doing it again. I'm not doing it again.
Good for you.
So the hard part was at that time, my son, he was 17 at this point. So I call him and I tell him, hey, we're having issues. I'm leaving. I'm going to live with grandma. You're welcome to come, but I'm not going to make you, or you can stay. Like, what am I supposed to do? I don't want to make him leave. And, like that was tough. And when we got back together, Eric didn't know his dad. He had been away from him for 10 years. So he was kind of more like a stepdad, if you will, because he didn't have a relationship with him. And that was really difficult on their relationship. That was a whole different thing. Anyway, so Eric said, well, I'm just going to stay here. Like, it's fine. I don't have an issue with them, so I'll stay here. Well, when Eric got home that night, he was like, why are you here? And just created this whole thing. And then Eric left as well. It was probably for the best anyway, because Eric got to make his own choice. He got to choose to stay or go, and then it wasn't forced on him, and there was no resentment about that. Mm-hmm. So that was really good. But then later, so we divorced the second time. And then I did a lot of personal development work. And that's where I realized, I was like, why did I go back to him? I mean, I knew the justification why I thought, we had stopped doing the drugs. It's been 10 years. It'll be fine. But after doing a lot of inner work, what I realized was that there were two things. One is that I blamed myself for him not getting out of the addiction at the beginning, the first time. Mm-hmm. So I thought if I had done something different, he would have been different.
Yeah.
So that's why I got back in, that maybe it was just me and that situation is different. But the second time, what I realized was that I had been told so much that if you love me, fill in the blank, right? That manipulation.
Yeah.
That I realized that I needed to learn that I could love him from a distance. And that just loving him didn't mean I had to be with him.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that. I didn't know that in either time we were in relationship with each other. It wasn't until after divorcing the second time that I had that realization. And now I know. Because I would always say, he's not a bad person. I know he's not. We're just not good together. We're just not good together.
I'm trying to justify it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how that worked out. That it was like, okay, so we can I can love you in a different way, from afar. And that was where I stepped into my power. And I knew I don't have to do this anymore.
So that's when you knew that I have a choice now, and these are
Yep.
which
I don't
way
have to
want
be a
it.
victim
I
about
don't have
it.
to be a victim.
Yep.
Wow.
So let's stop for a quick commercial break, but when we come back, let's go more into the choice, because we were talking a little bit about it before the show, and all three of us had things that we were talking about, and it's like, oh yeah, we got to save this for the show, because really, again, now what I've known too is we do have a choice to go whichever direction that we choose to go. Mm-hmm. And if we choose the wrong direction, which we do in life, we also have to learn how to take the accountability and not point the finger.
Absolutely.
So listeners, stay with us. We're going to be right back for the second half of the show, to where we're going to get more into the power of choice.
Have you ever been in a car accident? Do you know what to do after being in a car accident? Are the insurance companies going to take care of you? Hi, I'm attorney Rick Heaton with the Law Office of Bobby Udall. I will help you through the process and answer all of these questions. I give every single client my cell phone so they can talk to me whenever they need. Let me deal with the insurance company so you can focus on getting better from your injuries. Call me at 385-330-0226. Again, my cell phone number, 385-330-0226. Don't call the insurance company first. Call attorney Rick Heaton at 385-330-0226.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction podcast. We are here with our special guest, Leticia Morrill. So Leticia, thank you so much. And
Absolutely.
First half of the show was awesome, and we have Janessa here also, which it's always a pleasure having you here with us. So, my gosh, your life has just... you were an adult basically at the age of 15, in all honesty,
Truly.
Even though you didn't have the adult mind, but you were still being an adult. And I think you said you were now, in your 30s, and you had gotten married second time with the person that you left.
Yeah.
And you realized, this is not where I want to be again.
Yeah.
And, for some of our listeners, if you think, well, we should know better at the age of 30, I still don't think we do. Mm-mm. It took me till I was probably in my late 40s before things finally really started clicking, and I started seeing life the way life should be meant to be looked at, I guess, in a way. But at the beginning of the show, we were talking about choice. Mm-hmm. And I know this is our topic, the power of choice, which I think is a really good topic. And I shared it before the show that when my wife was in the depths of her addiction, I posted something on Facebook and talking about choice. And my wife, one of her ex-best friends, got on and said, oh, I know people who have been addicts and they say it's all about choice. And I was still pretty against it, I guess, at the time. And now that I have been in the depths of her addiction and also realizing I have choices as well, now I'm going, oh my gosh, I should have been looking at this differently back then. And I would have to say the person that wrote it, she was right. You know, as much as I hate to admit that she was right, she was right. And again, it's that ego thing steps in and go, no way, no, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. But you do start realizing that you do have choices.
Yeah.
That you don't have to stay stuck where you're at, you know, and Mom, if you watch this episode, I hope you're okay with this, but you know, I just lost my dad in February, and my mom and dad have been together since they were 16, 17 years old. And I don't think my mom had a lot of choices. It was either his way or you
Right.
you just don't do it. And now she feels guilty about doing different things because she's doing it. And I'm like, well, you should feel great because now you can do it and you don't have any consequences.
Yeah.
You know, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. And she's feeling guilty. And I told her, I put my arm around her the other day and I says, I'm going to continue to work on you, Mom. I says, because you should not be feeling the way that you're feeling.
Yeah.
You have a choice and you should choose now to go whichever direction you decide you want to go. You do not have to be stuck right here. And it sounds like that's what you did in your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just recognizing that, just like you said, it took someone else showing me the way that it was a choice, because I was in victimhood. Like I was just like, it's all these things as the reasons that I'm here. But then, like I was saying, that there was some inner work and personal development things that I was doing. And there was another moment where I had a choice. And it was when I had left. He was still in the house that we were renting, and I had moved out. The landlord called me one evening and said, basically, we're evicting and your stuff needs to be out before Sunday night at midnight. And this was Friday evening that I got the phone call.
Usually it's like a 2 or 3 day notice, huh? Yeah.
Right. I mean, And so I was busy. I was doing this personal development stuff over that weekend. And in that moment, my natural reaction was to freak out and go into victim, like anxious and crisis, dramatic, all the things. And I recognized it and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. It'll be fine. I'll just call her in the morning and see if we can work something out. And I let it go. And it was a miracle, because that's not easy to do. It's really like a decision, most definitely. So the next morning I explain, kind of our situation, and it didn't make a difference. They still evicted. We still, I lost a lot of stuff that was in the house at the time. I got some, but lost most of it. And I was okay with that, because I was in control of that decision. I made that choice and it was fine. And all of that drama or victimness, the crisis mode that would have occurred wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that.
True.
Like, it's an evolution, right? I think all of us, it's the perfect moments, the perfect experiences that show up in our lives that give us those learning opportunities.
Yeah.
If we choose to
If
learn.
we choose. Yes.
Definitely.
I remember asking my therapist that. I remember saying, because my husband would keep relapsing, and I was like, why do I even get back up? I'm so sick of getting hit or down every single freaking time. I'm tired. Why do I keep fighting? And they're like, she was trying to say, like, not to go in the freak out mode. When he relapses, it's, you're miserable, you're checking his phones, you're going absolutely crazy. And I was like, why does it matter? Why do I have to try and not do that? And she's like, because you're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to change him relapsing, but it'll make your life a heck of a lot more pleasant.
Right.
If you choose the happier side and not to freak out. you know?
Yep.
And that was huge for me because I was like, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was such a foreign thing. Like, why do I even try? Well, for you.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, Janessa, because and I've shared this a few times on some of the other shows, but, I had a bad anger issue through, into my teenage years all the way up into my mid-20s. And then one day I hurt someone that I didn't really want to hurt, and as they're laying on the floor curled up in a ball, I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? So I decided to go to therapy to learn how to control my temper. And the therapist, Marcia, I still remember her name, after I don't know how many weeks, but anyway, she had this piece of paper and she had it upside down, and I could tell there was different, there was a color on the other side of it, but she started talking to me and she was literally getting me pissed off. That was her whole goal, on purpose, to start getting me upset. And I remember my leg under the table starts bouncing up and down, and pretty soon I can feel my fist doubling up, and she asked me, she goes, so how you feeling right now? I'm like, the hell you mean how am I feeling? Freaking pissing me off. Why are you're supposed to help me learn how to control this. And I was really getting upset. And she flipped that piece of paper over, and there was a dark side and a light side, almost kind of like a yin and yang,
Okay.
and all these little paths. And she goes, so the dark side is being upset and miserable, and the light side is being lightful, Mm-hmm. She's like, how do you feel? And I remember slamming my finger down on the desk, and I'm like, this is how I feel. And I'm doing what I learned from my dad. I'm gritting my teeth, and I'm just pissed as hell. And she goes, so why didn't you choose this way? Huh?
Like, I can't.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Because you're pissing me off. Well, do you like being pissed off? No. So why are you doing it? So why don't you choose this? And that aha moment happened for me. But then when it came to my wife's addiction, I fell right back into that victim mode, because I did the same thing as you, and I think Janessa did the same thing. I started blaming my spouse for every situation that we were in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I blamed her because of our finances. I blamed her for this. I blamed her for that. This is the reason why life is the way it is right now. And it took me, I don't know how many flipping years before that light bulb finally went off. And I think it came that time when I was going to come home and go get my pistol and go up in the mountains and take my life. I think that was kind of like that aha moment. And there was a time when she did call me and she said, I screwed up. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Again.
Yeah.
And I was doing everything I could not to fall into what your therapist was telling you. It's, I said, okay, well, if this is the way it's going to be, I says, then here's your choice. You either pick that or you pick me. You decide. And her next words were, have a good life. And she hung up.
Wow.
And I thought, son of a bitch. She picked the alcohol. Son of a bitch. I cannot believe this just happened. And I remember going back to work, and some of the people I was working with, they could kind of tell something, because I was joking around, having fun. Got to have fun while you're working. But they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And I'm like, I cannot let this get to me. I've been having a great day today. She made her choice. But then about 15 minutes later, my phone rang, and it was her again. And she goes, I choose you. I choose you. I choose you. And I'm like, thank you. But I could have fallen back into that same thing again now, where I'm feeling like I'm the victim. Even though she made the choice to do what she wanted to do, I had my choice too.
Yeah.
So
I think I've actually been thinking about this a ton lately, but I have a lot of women come to me who are in the middle of addiction with their spouse, and they've allowed their spouse to kind of run the show, and they just do whatever to appease them. Don't poke the bear.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm like, well, why don't you, go get some therapy? Why don't you change? Why don't you, you deserve better than this? And I think as I've been, I don't know, have more people come and talk to me and stuff, I'm like, I really think they're afraid of what they will choose, that they won't choose them. If they say, I'm going to get better, I'm going to move on, are you coming with me? Sometimes they don't.
Yep.
And I think that's what holds them back, is that, just like what you, what Al said, oh my gosh, she chose the alcohol. That's our worst nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah, and I know that one thing that really was hard for me when I left the first time was that I was always so scared that he would find someone else and he would stop using for them. And then I thought that was about me.
Makes sense.
Why
Yes, it
wasn't
does.
I good enough to stop? Why didn't you stop when I asked you
Yeah.
to?
I'm
That
not
it was
good
my
enough,
fault
yeah.
that you didn't change. And so that was also a tough one. And that carried on, through the years and other relationships and whatnot. And I don't know that it's ever, I don't know that for me, it's even 100% healed yet. I think there is still some of that lingers that, I still want the love and acceptance. And so sometimes even recently I've noticed that I have done things, not anything to the extreme like we were talking about, but not standing in my own power and making my own decisions and saying, this is where my truth is and what is in alignment with my soul and what is good for me. And if that's great for you too, awesome. But if not, that's okay, because I get to live with me. So it's important that I'm making choices that feel good to me.
Yeah.
And everything else will fall into place. But man, that's a heavy one, you know.
Yeah, it is really heavy. And again, I think our ego comes into it. It comes into play. And our subconscious mind isn't going to erase certain things.
Right.
It's always there, and any chance it gets to surface, it's going to surface, But we also have to be patient with ourselves, I think, as well. There for a while after my dad passed, I was kind of confused with some things and things that was going on with Janan and I, and I really pulled myself away, and she was playing the victim, thinking it was all her, and when it wasn't, but she was making certain choices to go a different direction, and it's like I told her, I'm like, just let me deal with what I need to deal with inside here. It's nothing that you're doing, just let me deal with. I don't even know what it is right now. So how can I explain to you what you can do to help me when I can't even figure out what it is to do to help me? Let me figure this stuff out, and here just yesterday I kind of fell in that same pool, I guess, cesspool, put it bluntly, and again last night, 15 minutes in bed, and all of a sudden she's like, we need to talk. Holy shit, man. We're in bed. Let's go to sleep. Yeah, but, she had some questions for me, and I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. And I've learned also to be really careful of going, this is how you're making me feel. Now I know to say, this is just how I'm feeling right now. And I need to figure it out. Give me my time.
Yeah.
And it's hard for her to give me that space because she wants it.
Yeah.
She wants it now, and especially as an addict. Addicts, that's what it's now. When we want something, it's now.
Instant gratification.
Instant gratification. And I told her, just give me time. And I got home from the gym this morning, and she was just getting out of the shower, and I went in the bathroom, and she had a bad nightmare last night, and she's crazy. It's almost like a nightmare on Elm Street, because she knows when she's having, and she literally called out my name last night and says, Al, please wake me up, please wake me up, please wake me up. And I hurried and woke her up, and she's like, thank you, because she couldn't get herself out.
Wow.
But I went in the bathroom and gave her a hug this morning. I'm like, are you okay? And she goes, yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right. And I'm like, all right. And then I got me a cup of coffee, and we went outside, and I said, hey, look, I just got to apologize for how I've been. It's like, just give me some time. let me figure some things out. And I was in a better mood when I came home from the gym, because while I was at the gym, I'm like, I feel like shit, and I don't want to feel like shit.
Yeah.
So I got to choose to go a different path.
Yep.
And it really helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think learning to, this helped me a lot. I read this book by Pete Walker, and it had the 4 types of responses that we have. They can be used for good and for not good, you know. But there are 4 ways. Wow. 4 ways.
now you're talking like me. You're hanging around me too much, Janessa.
Anyway, the 4 ways that we cope. There's the fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And so I think some of them we naturally are born with, that we will respond that way when something happens. And I think also a lot of them are learned as well. And for me, mine is fawn. I mean, usually they say you have a dominant one, and then you have one that you'll go to if that one doesn't work. So mine is fawn. Like, I become a chameleon, and I lose myself very easily to people because I don't want to get in trouble. I'm scared. My life revolves around them and making them happy. And I think that's something that, you know, I was born with, but also raised to do as well. And then my second one is to fight. I don't know. I guess I go back and forth. Fight or flight is what they call it, where you just run away. You just want to get out of there.
Yeah.
And anyway, I find myself fighting that all the time. And even in his book, he's like, you're not ever going to get rid of that, but you can learn to use it for good and recognize it and stop it, right? So that's something I'm working on, but I've noticed that, like, when I'm in a really scary situation or traumatic, I immediately go to that. And it's really hard for me to get out of it. I even realized it just this past week. I've been having such a hard time, and I went to my therapist, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this and that, and telling my situation, and he's like, you're wanting that control, and you use that by becoming a chameleon, you know.
Interesting.
And so it really was a slap in the face. It's those painful therapy sessions where you're like, that was so good and it hurt so bad.
Yeah.
But you get out and you're like, oh, okay, I need to, like, wake up call. I need to step back and get my power back, like you were saying. Like, I was giving it away to everybody to try and make everyone feel better, to try and control the outcome, and I was making me absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
So.
And don't you find that's what we do as humans quite a bit, is trying to control, and especially in the addiction world. You know, it's really cool that you said, Leticia, that you went to like a self-help type seminar and thing, and you start learning, and here you are getting a notice that you're going to be evicted and you have to have your stuff out. For you to take a deep breath and go, okay, there's nothing I can do right now at this point. To give that up, that's a hard thing for all of us to do. So I tip my hat off to you for just going, okay, there's not much I can do about it right now.
Yeah,
and
the best out of it.
make the best out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of in that situation right now with some things that's going on. It's like this morning, I'm like, it's out of my hands. This is out of my control. So all I can do is, which I've shared many times, it's like, I can't do this alone, you know. And even though our whole family is LDS, and that I look at myself as more spiritual, and it's like, I got God by my side. It'll turn out the way it needs to turn out, because that's how it's supposed to turn out. I've just got to learn, because if I can't control it, why do I continue to make myself miserable to try to control it? Probably like what Janessa and I did with our spouses, is we tried to control their addiction, and it wasn't up to us. You know.
True.
And it took a lot for us to make that choice, just like with yourself, to say, okay, my hands are up. You know,
Yeah.
I think Carrie Underwood sings a song like that, Jesus Take the Wheel. It's just
Yeah.
take over, because I'm not steering the car very well right now.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think another thing that I learned powerfully about the choice is that just as powerful as making a choice of however I want to react, was that not making a choice is also making a choice.
Yeah.
And I think that I sat in that for a long time. I didn't choose this. I'm not choosing that. Well, what are you choosing instead? Well, nothing. What do you mean? Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's a choice.
So not doing anything is also a choice.
Yeah.
And then you are not creating any different results. You're just going to get the same results, and then you're just the insanity right? Doing the same thing over and over. So.
Yeah. Well, on the choice of looking at things differently, you know, and that's another thing that I have learned, and I'm pretty sure all of us have learned the same thing, that even with some of the darkest times in our life, if you go back and you really start thinking the choices that you did make, and maybe some of them were wrong, but you can always choose to find something good out of all that. I mean, this podcast wouldn't be happening if it wasn't
Truly.
for all the bullshit
Exactly.
my wife and I went through
Yeah.
with her addiction. None of it would be happening. I wouldn't be getting up on stage and talking to people. I wouldn't be going to recovery centers and
Right.
talking to students or clients. None of that would be there.
Yeah.
And I also
You
think
know?
that that's why it's helpful to empower other people, to let them be where they are. Like, yes, we want to support them. Yes, we want to help them. Yes, we want to give them resources. But it's not ours to control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we don't know where this path may lead. You know, you just don't know. You just don't know.
You don't.
It's
Yeah.
interesting how we go about it. I was telling when I was with my therapist, I was like, I feel like I'm just blaming myself. I feel so much guilt for the situation we're in. I'm like, I blame myself for everything. He's like, that's a way of control. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? And he's like, because if you blame yourself, that means you're saying you can change it. And I was like,
That's interesting.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is
yeah.
very interesting.
And I was like, crap. I
That
never
might be
thought
for
of
your
it that
mom.
way.
Yeah,
But it's true.
it is true.
I was using it as a way to say that I could control and change it. When he's like, it's not your fault. It's no one's fault. It just is.
Yeah.
Life
Yeah.
is that way. Yeah, you can choose what you do, but blaming yourself or blaming others is a way of giving or taking control that's not yours. And I was like, I've just been like blowing my
Wow.
mind.
that needs to be put on a keychain
Yeah,
or
that's a
something
great
like
one.
that, right?
Because I never
Yeah.
thought of blame that way, ever.
Being controlling. Yeah.
Being a way of controlling.
No, I love that.
That is really good. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to stop for our last commercial break, and we'll come back here and we will wrap this thing up. So stay with us.
Good morning, this is Leticia with Computer Hospital. We are your computer repair experts for both PC and Mac. We are your community resource for all of your computer repair needs. What makes us different is that we want to fix your computer. We also do free diagnostics. We charge a flat rate labor, which means that you won't pay by the hour. All of our computer repair is done in-house with a fast turnaround time, and same-day service is also available. Feel free to stop by anytime without an appointment. We're located in Sandy at 8721 South State Street. Again, that's 8721 South State Street. Or call us at 801-987-3993. Again, that's 801-987-3993. This is Leticia with Computer Hospital, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Hello there, this is Brad Neufeld with the Resilience Talk Network, and I would like to introduce to you Taffytown, one of our newest sponsors. Let me introduce you to Derek.
Hi, I'm Derek from Taffytown. We're proud sponsors of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Taffy Town is a family-owned and operated business, still operating in the Salt Lake City area for over 100 years. We manufacture some of America's best saltwater taffy.
What makes Taffy Town stand out from all of the others?
We have a unique recipe, a whipped-style recipe that incorporates egg whites, evaporated milk, real sea salt. It's a unique product that is flavorful, melts in your mouth, and the best part is we probably have a flavor for anyone's liking, a flavor for any reason, for any season. We have unique flavors like chicken and waffles, maple bacon, frosted cupcake. New this year was a pineapple ghost pepper flavor.
That's awesome. Where can people find out more about Taffy Town and all of its products?
You can check all of this stuff out. All of our products are available for sale on taffytown.com. We ship for free from our website, so all of our pricing on there is shipping included. Oftentimes we offer special promotions and discounts to our loyal customers, so do be sure to sign up for an account, and we look forward to seeing what we can do to make you smile with our taffy.
Where are you located?
We are currently located at 9813 South Prosperity Road in West Jordan, Utah, just at the foothills of the Copper Canyon mine.
Derek, taffy has always been a great gift to give. What are some of the creative ways Taffy Town can help say thank you to others?
Yeah, if you're looking for gift ideas, whether to say thank you to friends or family, or maybe to your clients after such a difficult or successful year that you've had, you could look no further than to get a gift idea from taffytown.com. We offer pre-packaged gift boxes that say that it's saltwater taffy from the city of the Great Salt Lake, and it tells a little bit about the history of our community and making candy for so long. You can also do customized gifts to pick out just the right flavors or colors of candy for that special someone, and deliver even a personalized message in that box to them. So please feel free to check out taffytown.com for any gift ideas this season.
Thank you so much, Derek. Please visit taffytown.com, that's taffytown.com, to find out more about the products and services that Taffy Town offers. You won't be disappointed.
Do you know someone who's gambling with death due to an addiction? Do you know someone whose life is being turned upside down due to a loved one that's battling with addiction? Hi, I'm Al Richards. I am the host of the Other Side of Addiction podcast. I started the podcast due to my wife's battle with alcohol. Let's just say I became addicted to her addiction. Our podcast is helping people understand a little more about those who have battled addiction and those who are hurting from their addiction. Through raw vulnerability, we share stories that help uncover the root causes of addiction. Shame felt on both sides, matter of the conscious and subconscious mind, continued beliefs, and often confusing paths of recovery. We collaborate with real people and their stories, as well as licensed professionals, to help our audience gain a better understanding of addiction. You can find us on Resilience Talk Network. You can also find us on Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. That's Facebook at Mr. Al Richards. You can also find us on YouTube. Just look up the Other Side of Addiction podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Other Side of Addiction podcast with our special guest, Leticia Morrill. So, Leticia, oh my gosh, this has been such a great show. I think all of us have learned something today from the show.
Absolutely.
Which I think we do on every show. That's what's so cool about these shows. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and coming out and sharing your story, because, you know, it's not always easy. You know, I tip my hat off to all our guests that come on the show and share a part of their life that was a dark time, and it wasn't a good time, but to see where they're at today,
Yeah.
and to hear what they've learned along the way. Both Janessa and I, we've been on the other side of the addiction, and it's tough. I mean, it really is tough to stand by somebody that you love and that you care about while you're seeing them destroy their lives and things. But for those of us who have been able to stick it out, not saying there's anything wrong with those that can't, because that's their own thing. I don't know what happened with them, so that's not my choice or my place to judge where they're at. I just think it is a small group of us. How it happened for Janessa and I don't know, but to see where you are at today, and not even knowing, and I know your husband Kevin, just he's a phenomenal guy, and I'm sure you'll agree with that.
Absolutely.
He's just a great human being, and so are you. We always like to give our guests an opportunity to share something with our audience, something that you think that they can take away that would really help them. But also share just a little bit more also about the computer hospital, because we want to give you the opportunity to talk about the business as well.
Yeah, so I guess for just a message for the audience, it really is kind of like what you said. It's being gentle on yourself. I don't think it can be done alone. I'm really grateful for my parents that I got another chance, right?
Right.
I think that that's really tough, because it's like, how many chances do you get? But we've talked a lot about, whatever you want to call it, spirit, God, religion, whatever. I feel like it's tapping into that and really I guess it's like removing the blocks and being open to receiving those inspirations of what to do next. Because in those moments, you don't know. I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do in those moments. And I think that it really is just figuring out whatever that is for you that you can tap into. Maybe I know you've got lots of resources that on your page, and people that have support groups, or maybe it's just listening to this podcast and reaching out to somebody who inspires you. Just don't try to do it alone. There's so many people to help and to support that there's just no reason, especially people that have been through it. There's so much compassion, and not necessarily that you have to have gone through it in order to have that compassion, but I know that being so I've been on both sides, right? Because he was an addict and I saw it a bit, and then I joined. So you can be just a supporter. And so for those people that haven't had addiction but support, bless you, because that is also a very compassionate place to be. So that would be it.
And I want to say with you saying the support, don't be like I was, where my wife says, for once I wish you'd be my husband instead of my damn therapist. I was working on being her therapist when I had no clue what it's like being an addict.
Yeah.
Be in support, as be there to listen to somebody.
Yeah.
Be there to give them a hug.
Yep.
Be there to let them know everything will be okay. But don't do the shoulds. Well, you should do that and you should do this, or, go this way or go that way, because unless you step in those shoes, you have no idea.
Yeah.
So I believe that's really good advice, because we can all support.
Yeah.
Your parents supported you, and really the way I see it, they supported you in the right way, which I made the mistake of not doing with my wife. And it sounded like Janessa was the same thing with her husband. We were too busy trying to control the situation. They knew they couldn't control your actions.
For sure.
But they were there with open arms, but they also didn't cripple you or enable you.
Yeah.
They let you step in your own piles of dog shit, basically, to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
To where finally one day you got tired of the stink and said enough's enough.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
so tell us a little bit more about Computer Hospital.
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, my husband and I took over a company, Computer Hospital, that had already been established. So we've been in business since 2012. We've been there for 5 years. We're in our 6th year now, and it's just he and I, and he is a computer repair wizard, knows everything about computers, and so that's awesome. And I'm a people person. I love the people. I love to connect with people. I love to get as much of their story as I can in the few minutes that we're interacting. And that's why we make such a great team, is because he knows his stuff to make the computers run better and faster and fix them and all that stuff. And then I'm just great with the people. And so it just makes a great client experience when people come in. And so really at the end of the day, we just want to help people. And so we're not trying to get rich over here. We're just trying to make a decent living and help our community as much as we can. And so we love being a resource for everyone here.
That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And I've shared in some of our shows, actually a lot of our shows that have gone out, that you guys aren't there to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. You're there to do good, honest business and help somebody that's in trouble. I mean, I'm only right across the street from you guys, and I don't know how many times I've popped in and you guys have helped me, you know, to where I could have took my computer anywhere else, especially my old one.
Yeah.
And, you know, when my little battery thing was too small to keep the computer going, someone could have said, oh yeah, you need a new computer. You guys are like, no. Kevin's like, no, your computer's okay. Yeah, it's getting bad, but all you got to do is have a bigger battery to kind of help keep things going. You know, and to me, those are the type of businesses you want to do business with.
Absolutely.
Is people like you and Kevin. And, and I've been in your store when customers have come in, and I highly recommend these guys, and I can vouch for what you say, because you are very good with people. Plus, I've networked with you, and I've seen you with other people, how you interact. Yeah, it's a no-brainer.
I just love people.
Yeah, I'm the
it's
same
my
way.
natural gift. I really
Yes.
do. It is my natural gift, and so it's how I use it now.
That's
It's my gift to the community and to the world. Really, I just love being with the people. So
Love it. Well, and
so cool.
again, thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
For supporting
Happy
the
to
other
do it.
side of addiction.
Absolutely, you do great work. I'm
Thank
so
you.
thrilled to be able to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. Janessa, is there something you'd like to add before we sign off here?
I just love your story, like how vulnerable and open you were, and that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Like really hard. So that was really awesome that you shared
Thank
it with
you.
us, because I know it's gonna help a lot of people, and I really commend you for that. So thank you.
Yeah,
It
thank
helped
you.
me a lot.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Hey, thank you again for joining us. And again, we just want to say thank you to Resilience Talk Network. Thank you to all our many, many sponsors. We've got just a plethora of so many incredible people. And guys, please, when you see one of our shows, please share it with just one person. Share it with somebody new every single week and ask them to subscribe, because it really, really helps us on the social media. Really, really helps us. And keep a close eye on social media as well, because we have started doing some live shows. You will see Brad and I here in the studio. The way it's going, I think it's going to be Wednesday nights, but you'll be catching us with different type of topics and hopefully some really awesome guests. So, guys, thank you very much. We appreciate all your support and all your love, and we're going to end it as we do the way every week. And remember, addiction is giving up everything for one thing, giving up one thing for everything. Oh, no, wait a minute. I even said that wrong. Oh, my gosh. Addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Recovery is giving up one thing for everything. We're out.